Bonjour, bienvenue. Good afternoon. I'm Gaëtan Bruel, Director of Villa Albertine and Cultural Councillor of the French Embassy, and I'm very happy to welcome you all for the second part of this second day of our Proust Weekend, celebrating on the occasion of his centennial the wonderful work of Proust and his universe. It's now my pleasure to launch our afternoon-themed event in search of the lost Madeleine, starting with a live reading by Dee Beasnael. Dee is an international stage, film and voice-over actor who recently won a Best Actress Award for her work with the Seven Daughters of Yves Theatre Company's last production. Dee, the floor is yours for the reading. Thank you.
For many years already, everything about Combray that was not the theater and drama of my bedtime had ceased to exist for me, when one day in winter, as I returned home, my mother, seeing that I was cold, suggested that, contrary to my habit, I have a little tea. I refused at first, and then, I do not know why, changed my mind. She sent for one of those squat, plump cakes called petites madeleines that look as though they have been molded in the grooved valve of a scallop shell. And soon, mechanically, oppressed by the gloomy day and the prospect of another sad day to follow, I carried to my lips a spoonful of the tea in which I had let soften a bit of Madeleine. But at the very instant when the mouthful of tea mixed with cake crumbs touched my palate, I quivered, attentive to the extraordinary thing that was happening inside me. A delicious pleasure had invaded me, isolated me, without my having any notion as to its cause. It had immediately rendered the vicissitudes of life unimportant to me, its disasters innocuous, its brevity illusory, acting in the same way that love acts, by filling me with a precious essence. Or rather, this essence was not merely inside me, it was me. I had ceased to feel mediocre, contingent, mortal. Where could it have come to me from, the powerful joy? I sensed that it was connected to the taste of the tea and the cake, but that it went infinitely far beyond it, cannot be the same nature. Where did it come from? What did it mean? How could I grasp it? I drink a second mouthful, in which I find nothing more than in the first, a third that gives me a little less than the second. It is time for me to stop. The virtue of the drink seems to be diminishing. Clearly, the truth I am seeking is not in the drink, but in me. The drink has awoken it in me, but does not know its truth, and can do no more than repeat indefinitely, with less and less force, this same testimony which I do not know how to interpret, and which I want at least to be able to ask of it again and find again, intact, available to me soon for a decisive clarification. I put down the cup of tea and turn to my mind. It is up to my mind to find the truth. But how? Such grave uncertainty whenever the mind feels overtaken by itself, when it, the seeker, is also the obscure country where it must seek and where all its baggage will be nothing to it. Seek? Not only that, create. It is face to face with something that does not yet exist and that only it can accomplish, then bring itself into light. And I begin asking myself again, what could it be? This unknown state which brought with it no logical proof, but only the evidence of its felicity, its reality, and in whose presence the other states of consciousness faded away. I want to try to make it reappear. I return in my thoughts to the moment when I took the first spoonful of tea. I find the same state again, without any new clarity. I ask my mind to make another effort, to bring back once more the sensation that is slipping away, and so that nothing may interrupt the thrust with which it will try to grasp it again. I clear away every obstacle, every foreign idea. I protect my ears and my attention from the noises in the next room. But feeling my mind grow tired without succeeding, I now compel it to accept the very distraction I was denying it, to think of something else, to recover its strength before a supreme attempt. Then, for a second time, I create an empty space before it. I confront it again with the still recent taste of the first mouthful and feel something quiver in me, shift, try to rise, something that seems to have been unanchored at a great depth. I do not know what it is, but it comes up slowly. I feel the resistance and I hear the murmur of the distances traversed. Undoubtedly, what is palpitating thus deep inside me must be the image, the visual memory, which is attached to this taste and is trying to follow it to me. But it is struggling too far away, too confusedly. I can just barely perceive the neutral glimmer in which the elusive eddying of stirred-up colors is blended, but I cannot distinguish the form, cannot ask it as the one possible interpreter to translate for me the evidence of its contemporary, its inseparable comparison, the taste. Ask it to tell me what particular circumstances involved, what period of the past. Will it reach the clear surface of my consciousness, this memory? This old moment, which the attraction of an identical moment has come from so far to invite, to move, to raise up from the deepest part of me? I don't know. Now, I no longer feel anything. It has stopped, gone back down perhaps. Who knows if it will ever rise up from its darkness again? 10 times I must begin again, lean down toward it, and each time, the laziness that deters us from every difficult task, every work of importance, has counseled me to leave it, to drink my tea and think about only my worries for today, my desires for tomorrow, upon which I may ruminate effortlessly. And suddenly, the memory appeared. The taste was the taste of the little piece of madeleine which on Sunday mornings at Combray, because that day I did not go out before it was time for Mass, when I went to say good morning to her in her bedroom, my Aunt Leonie would give me after dipping it in her infusion of tea and lime blossom. The sight of the little madeleine had not reminded me of anything before I tasted it. Perhaps because I had often seen them in those shops, the pastry shops, on the shelves, and their image had therefore left those days of Combray and attached itself to others more recent. Perhaps because of those recollections abandoned so long outside my memory, nothing survived. Everything had come apart. The forms and the form, too, of the little shell made of cake, so fatly sensual within its severe and pious pleading, had been destroyed or, still half asleep, had lost the force of expansion that would have allowed them to rejoin my consciousness. But when nothing subsists of an old past, after the death of people, after the destruction of things, alone, frailer but more enduring, more immaterial, more persistent, more faithful, smell and taste still remain for a long time. Like souls, remembering, waiting, hoping upon the ruins of all the rest, bearing without giving on their almost impalpable droplet the immense edifice of memory. And as soon as I had recognized the taste of the piece of Madeleine dipped in lime blossom tea that my aunt used to give me, though I did not yet know and had to put off to much later discovery why this memory made me so happy, immediately, the old gray house on the street where her bedroom was came like a stage set to attach itself to the little wing opening onto the garden that had been built from my parents behind it. That truncated section, which was all I had seen before then, and with that, the house with the town. From morning to night in all its weathers, the square where they sent me before lunch, the streets where they sent me on errands, the paths we took if the weather was fine. And as in the game enjoyed by the Japanese, in which they fill a porcelain bowl with water and steep in it little pieces of paper until then instinct, which, the moment they are immersed, stretch and twist, assume colors and distinctive shapes, become flowers, houses, human beings, firm and recognizable. So now, all the flowers in our garden, and in M. Swan's Park, and the water lilies of the Vivonne, and the good people of the village, all of them in their little dwellings, and the church, and all of Cambrai and its surroundings, all of this, which is acquiring form and solidity, emerged, town and gardens alike, from my cup of tea.